In the top right of the map, we have our green Protoss player. Displayed in many a show match at this point, it is none other than Experta. In the bottom left part of the map, we have his opponent. From, I believe that's Paragons of Power, our Red Terran DeathRoW. Paragons of Perfection, not Power. I can read the icon. I don't know if it came up on your guys' screen at all, but that is okay. So pretty much here, like I said, what we were talking about before, this terrain piece here tends to make defending this space incredibly difficult, especially as a Protoss player, just because it forces you to split some of your defenses here and some of your defenses here, and it is very, very hard to keep the proper amount. Everything is there. I am just not used to how quiet this feels in my headset. Man, it's been so long since I got to cast a game like this. Super glad for it, though. But anyway, you've got that feature, not to mention this fact, is you have a decent amount of airspace right here, and the main is fairly large. So obviously that means when you're playing against a Protoss player, you've got to keep your eyes open for any hidden pylons, not to mention you do have to watch out for drops in those places later in the game. It becomes particularly important. Both players know that they're scouting each other. DeathRoW going for a little bit of a quicker scout there. Not seeing him do anything particularly unusual just yet. Typical timings on the refinery and on the barracks. Kind of this earlier scout that we see here with this SCV, rather than just relying on the Reaper scout these days, is a little bit of an insurance thing that a lot of Terrans are adopting, even at the pro level, just because it allows you to basically make sure you're not getting hit with any weird, wacky early crap that the Reaper needs to be at home to help defend. Though it looks like in this case, DeathRoW is actually going for a more marine-oriented opening. Experta saying manners please for some reason. And we're noticing the 3 supply depot wall off at the front. Grabbing gas this early on, and this setup seems to lend itself to some kind of earlier marine push potentially, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. Not too well up on my Terran builds at the moment. So let's go ahead and jump back over here and take a look a little bit at what our Protoss player is doing here. So we have okay. Yes, I do apologize about the quality, but there's unfortunately nothing I can do about that. Working with what I've got. Let's see here. So it looks like Experta is actually going for a relatively normal setup. Not seeing anything particularly weird here. Typical base, typical mothership core timings, typical gas timings. And it looks like he's actually setting up to take an expansion. So looking to go into the mid-game at least. Meanwhile, DeathRoW is not showing any intention of actually taking an expansion. Is looking to push out as many Marines as he can. He's grabbing a tech lab. And is... and is getting ready for what it looks like a push here pretty soon. But yes, it is not so that you'd be able to watch Red Bull, like I said. Unfortunately, it is. I'm just saying it's a fact of the situation. Nothing I can do about the quality, unfortunately. That's why I usually have somebody else stream for me, but I wasn't quite able to have it. And a little interesting thing from DeathRoW here, actually, because I have finished turret. Hopefully he notices that and actually gets it up. Don't think it'll be too important for him actually going forward at the moment, but you never know. Anytime Dark Shrine, as they say. There's always a reason to expect that at some point in the game. Still, we got a robotics facility, so we're looking at a very, very standard setup here from our Protoss player wanting to go down the Colossus route. And here comes a little push forward from DeathRoW. Looks like he, interestingly, did take some damage on this Marine earlier. So the Mothership Core did pick up on what's going on. He will get here a little bit ahead of the Mothership Core, though. And this probably will come down to how well Experta can force field this ramp, because more than likely, Experta's going to be able to hold this Nexus. If he lets it finish, he's got enough for a Photon Overcharge, he'll be able to defend against this, and the attack is going to go down on it now. It shouldn't kill the Nexus. The real danger, though, oh, it's actually causing a cancel. That's really, really good for DeathRoW. But, okay, yeah. Force fields are starting to go down. He's going to need another one in order to continually force field off this area. Mothership Core has actually been zoned out by the army. He's going to have a difficult time defending this main base if he is actually able to get up here. And it looks like for now, DeathRoW is just going to push units out across the map and basically build his forces at the front of Experta. Meantime, he's grabbing another gas and some upgrades, and honestly, that kind of lending itself to the notion that he might be wanting to push this. Ooh, taking out a sentry right there does mean that he will be able to get up into the base fairly soon here, but you'll have to wait a few more, maybe about a minute for the rest of the energy to run out on that sentry. Mothership Core has made it to the base. We'll be able to get that photon overcharge down to help defend if that does become a necessity. And we're just going to have to wait and see what happens here. One of the things that is... Oh! Unfortunately, we have a little bit of a hole in the wall there. He needs another force field to block that off. Does manage to do it. Two Marines trapped at the top now are going to focus on the sentries. If he's able to do that, does do an incredible amount of damage to the Protoss army. Losing those sentries, unfortunately, is something very, very difficult to replace. And he does take out a couple of them, and he's actually in position to where he can attack the Robo without really too much retaliation from the photon overcharge. So this is a very unfortunate situation for Experta. Going to lose that. Will get one immortal out of it, but he's been cut back pretty far on the tech as of right now. Meanwhile, we can see that we have an SCV back home getting ready to throw up a command center, so it looks like DeathRoW just wants to choke his opponent out a little bit. Meanwhile, Experta is actually warping in Zealots back in the main base. There's already a few units here to help take care of this, though. SCV is being pulled out to try and give some cover to the Marines, but the Zealots are focusing them down. Does lose the Warp Prism, but the two Zealots are still in base. They're going to kill maybe nothing more. Nothing more at all. Totally misreading that entirely. However, life moves on. Warp Prism didn't really get anything done with that. Did kill a couple SCVs. But he does have this army up here to kind of delay this base attempt a little bit. Mostly Stalkers, a couple, we got 3-4 Marauders actually with this army, though. It means that most of this is really vulnerable to what we have here and is actually going to go down. So the Stalker goes down, and with it, there isn't really much to defend up here. He does have a few units warping in and probably will be able to hold this off, but losing that Immortal, again, just more gas investment on the part of the Protoss, and it's just not being able to be kept around and really get a lot done. He's trying to push forward to do something against this army. Luckily for him, DeathRoW is actually not paying too close attention at the moment, macroing back his base, and is now focusing though the army down with concussive slow in there. He's not really able to do much with the Zealots. He's able to kite them back pretty easily. He takes them all down. It's just more and more losses for our green Protoss player. Things are still not decided just yet. Yes, DeathRoW is getting the second base up, but he does need to actually start mining from it, increase the worker saturation over there before it becomes a lot more than just basically a giant paperweight, which is what it's accomplishing at the moment. Factory coming down, increase in tech, he's getting more upgrades, and DeathRoW is actually just starting to squeak slowly ahead here. We'll have to wait and see, though. Another potential push attempt here. He's trying to bait the army up, I believe. Does put one force field down, gets a couple of units, gets a Marine at the cost of a Stalker. But this army is starting to get pretty badly bruised. All of these stims are simply not doing any favors for our Red Terran player. But that's only going to last for so long here, as he is pushing up into the tech necessary potentially to grit medevacs over time here. Reactor being thrown down. He may not have any intentions of doing that, though. Back home in base, we have another Robo facility up in play for Experta. He's grabbing another Warp Prism to try and get something done. He's made a lot of units, and he's going to try and push out. Can't really blame him here. He doesn't have the ability to get a Nexus up, really, without taking a huge risk. So he's got to do risk number one or risk number two. Either you throw out the entire army at your opponent's base and try and get something done, get some reinforcements waves there. Hope you catch him while he's trying to set up an expansion. That poor, unfortunate Marauder going to his doom. Or you try and go for the expansion, just hope your opponent doesn't do anything to you for a while. Unfortunately, DeathRoW just has a really scary looking army against what Experta has right now. I don't think necessarily this is going to be enough. It's going to come down to some extremely, extremely solid and effective force fields. And probably also the fact that Experta really isn't macroing at all at the moment. Rough, but it's happening. Hey Fade, good to see you. Hanging out in the chat down there. Thanks to everybody who's stopping by tonight. Doubly appreciated given that Red Bull Esports throwing on an event right now. Definitely something to check out eventually. I will for certain be watching it after this match, if the second one for tonight is not set up. Anyway, we have the attack has already begun. Bunker at the front. No SCVs being pulled to do anything about that. It's cut the army off from the other bunker. He's trying to fight against it here. Force Field's doing a decent job of zoning out the majority of the army. The other bunker actually getting salvaged. And maybe Experta will be able to pull this off here. He really needs to kill this expansion and get up one of his own to really get too much of an advantage, though, as with the medevacs now in play, he's soon going to be able to stim without anywhere near as much consequences. There just really isn't very much any splash damage with this army. He's going to be engaging out in the open. Force field's going down again, preventing a lot. Well, not actually doing much to prevent the army from fighting there. Gets a couple Marines, loses a few forces, basically just poking each other and then falling back. Actually, a lot of action in this game so far. It's another warp in, and pretty much the clock is ticking here. The longer DeathRoW keeps this base around, the longer he's able to actually produce everything that's coming out, and he's doing a decent job of that. The more advantage he's going to be able to obtain. Got a couple Widow Mines actually now in play as well, with this engagement going on. Army's kind of split on either side. Starting to lose these sentries though, and if the sentries go down, unfortunately, there really isn't much strength in this army, and yeah, that's